نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد بسم الله. Today, inshallah, we will start Surah Al-Fath. Surah Al-Fath is a Madani surah, 29 ayat and 4 ruku, means the victory. And the name comes from the beginning of the surah where it mentions a clear victory for Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So what is the connection of this surah with the previous surah, Surah Muhammad? So Surah Muhammad orders Muslims to fight in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whereas Surah Fath describes its outcome in the form of victory and conquest. Moreover, in Surah Muhammad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to seek forgiveness for believers. وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِكَ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. And Surah Fath announces glad tidings for them. يُكَفِّرْ عَنْهُمْ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ. A brief synopsis of the surah. So this surah begins with the glad tidings to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam of the great victory and the spread of Islam after the conquest of Mecca. It also outlines the duties of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as a witness upon his nation on the Day of Judgment and as a giver of glad tidings for believers and a warner for disbelievers. The surah praises the pledge of Ridwan under a tree in Hudaybiyah, and it admonishes hypocrites of various tribes for not joining Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in jihad. At the same time, exempts the blind, the lame, and the sick from the obligation of jihad. Surah Fath mentions the fulfillment of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's dream about entering Makkah safely and securely, and towards the end, it enumerates qualities of believers as being gentle among themselves, however, they are firm against disbelievers. So some of the virtues of this surah, as it comes in a narration, لَقَدْ أُنزِلَتْ عَلَيَّ اللَّيْلَةَ سُورَةٌ لَهِيَ أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا طَلَعَتْ عَلَيْهِ الشَّمْسُ ثُمَّ قَرَأَ إِنَّا فَتَحْنَا عَلَيْكَ فَتْحًا مُبِينًا. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, tonight there has been revealed to me a surah which is dearer to me than all the world, on which the sun rises. And then he Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam recited, إِنَّا فَتَحْنَا لَكَ فَتْحًا مُبِينًا, as narrated by Zayd bin Aslam in Bukhari. So before we go into the details of this surah, let's understand context behind this surah. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, along with companions, decided to go for Umrah in 6th Hijri. And they stayed at a location near Makkah called Hudaybiyah. But when they decided to enter Makkah, they were not permitted by Quraysh. Instead, they agreed to have a treaty with Quraysh to go back to Medina and then come back next year for Umrah. Now, the reasons why Muslims decided to go for Umrah was that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam saw a dream in Medina that he and companions had entered the house of Allah and the key to the Kaaba fell into his blessed hands. The vision of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was not merely a dream, rather a divine inspiration which he had to obey. But there was no date or time specified for that journey. When he narrated this vision to companions, they got excited and started to prepare for Umrah right away. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also invited people from neighboring villages to join him for a pilgrimage, but many refused, fearing a fight with Meccans who were superior in weapons and power. In any event, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam left Medina with his wife Salma anha and a group of about 1,400 people, including Muhajirs, Ansars, and some people from the neighboring villages. This was the time, it was the beginning of Dhul Qa'dah, and they took ihram at the location of Dhul Hulayfa with the intention of Umrah. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam sent Bishr bin Sufyan to Makkah for intelligence. So imagine this is a large group of Muslims now marching towards Makkah, and Meccans were also hearing about this news. They were concerned, what is the intention of this group of Muslims coming towards Makkah? So there was a lot of tension between, what may happen next between the Muslims traveling towards Makkah and the people of Makkah themselves. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also wanted to get a sense of how are things going on in Makkah? Are they planning to go at war? Or do they really understand the true intention of Muslims trying to go peacefully for the sake of Umrah. So he sent Bishr bin Sufyan anhu to Mecca for intelligence on the intentions of Quraysh against Muslims. And then this messenger came back and reported that Meccans are actually planning to go to war. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam consulted with his companions on what to do, should they continue or return, but it was decided that they would go ahead and perform the Umrah at all costs. So as Muslims marched towards Mecca, they were blocked by an army by Khalid bin Walid. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam stationed his companions at Hudaybiyah and started negotiation with people of Mecca through delegations. So after a few failed attempts of negotiation, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam sent Osman anhu to advise to Meccans that Muslims are not coming for fighting, rather they are coming to perform Umrah. However, miscommunication happened, and a few days later, rumors reached Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that Osman anhu has been assassinated. Upon that news, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gathered companions and took a historical pledge under a tree known as the Pledge of Ridwan. And the pledge was to fight with Quraysh to the last breath of their lives. And the people who took the pledge got a special status in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they were promised that they will not be entered into hellfire. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the way this pledge was taken was Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam placed his blessing hand, and then all the Sahaba also placed their hand as part of the process of bay'ah. And then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam put his one hand over the other and said, "This is Osman Radhan's pledge," because at that time Osman Radhan was missing. He was supposedly assassinated. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam considered his hand to be representing Osman Radhan's pledge. When the news of this commotion reached Meccans, they decided that at this time it's best to go into a peace treaty instead of war. And Suhail bin Amr was sent to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as a representative who clarified that Osman Radhan was not killed and will be set free, and that they need to negotiate the terms of treaty with Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which became in the end the Sulh Hudaybiyah, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. And among the many terms in that agreement, there was this understanding that Muslims will return that year without performing Umrah, but the following year they'll be allowed to come back and perform the Umrah. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam stayed about 19 to 20 days at the place of Hudaybiyah while all these negotiations were happening. And then on his way back, Surah Al-Fath was revealed. So this is the background of what led to the revelation of Surah Al-Fath. So let's start with Surah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. Indeed, we have given you, O Muhammad, a clear conquest. And there are different opinions regarding which event is referred to here as a clear victory. Some companions consider this event to be the conquest of Mecca. Abdullah bin Masud al-Talanu and Jabir al-Talanu consider Treaty of Hudaybiyah as a real victory. And Bara bin Adib al-Talanu says the Pledge of Ridwan on the occasion of Hudaybiyah was a real victory. So there are differences of opinion about what is considered to be the true victory here. One of the benefits of Hudaybiyah was that Muslims could safely meet with disbelievers, preach to idolaters, and invite them openly towards Islam. So a common misconception is that this is actually a defeat of Muslims, and Muslims are showing weakness by getting into this treaty, but this was instead an opportunity given to Muslims so that they could meet with disbelievers in a safe environment without the concern of waging a war. They could preach to idolaters and spread the message of Islam openly. And then eventually what happened was with this peace treaty in place and the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a large population accepted Islam during this time. لِيَغْفِرَ لَكَ اللَّهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِكَ وَمَا تَأَخَّرَ وَيُتِمَّ نِعْمَتَهُ عَلَيْكَ وَيَهْدِيَكَ صِرَاطًا مُسْتَقِيمًا. that Allah may forgive for you what preceded of your sin and what will follow, and complete His favor upon you and guide you to a straight path. وَيَنْصُرَكَ اللَّهُ نَصْرًا عَزِيزًا, and that Allah may aid you with a mighty victory. There are a few bounties mentioned in these verses related to the victory. First, that all sins are forgiven for Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's blessing will shower upon him, and that he will guide Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to a straight path, and finally that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will help him profusely. A question may come to mind when we look at a reference of sin towards Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that don't we believe that prophets are infallible and immune from sin, they're ma'soom. So how would we understand a reference of sin as part of this verse to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? So we are aware of misjudgment from some prophets in ijtihad. For example, Yunus al-Islam, when he left his nation early, in anticipation of punishment, that was considered a mistake in his understanding. But then all these acts that were performed by prophets are not really regarded as sins, rather they are a means of learning for others. That was part of their duty. Similarly, with regards to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we learn in Surah Abasa about the dislike of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala on how Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam treated a blind questioner, Abdullah bin Maktoum. So this type of fault is perhaps referred to in the current verse as zamb, and Allah knows best. وَالَّذِي أَنزَلَ السَّكِينَةَ فِي قُلُوبِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ لِيَزْدَادُوا إِيمَانًا مَعَ إِيمَانِهِمْ وَلِلَّهِ جُنُودُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَلِيمًا حَكِيمًا. It is He who sent down tranquility into the hearts of the believers that they would increase in faith along with their present faith. And to Allah belongs the soldiers of the heavens and the earth, and ever is Allah knowing and wise. So the word as-sakina means as-sukun, al-tamanina, al-thabat, so tranquility. ليدخل المؤمنين والمؤمنات جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها ويكفر عنهم سيئاتهم وكان ذلك عند الله فوزا عظيما. And that He may admit the believing men and the believing women to gardens beneath which rivers flow, to abide therein eternally, and remove from them their misdeeds, and ever is that in the sight of Allah a great attainment. When Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was given glad tidings in the first 3 verses of the surah, the companions asked, what will be their reward? Hence Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala revealed this verse, that believing men and believing women will be forgiven and entered into paradise. Narrated by Anas bin Malik and Bukhari, he says that first verse of Surah Al-Fath refers to Treaty of Hudaybiyah, and then companions said to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, هنيئا مريئا فما لنا فأنزل الله ليدخل المؤمنين والمؤمنات جنات. Congratulations, happiness for you, but what reward shall we get? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed that He may admit the believing men and women to gardens beneath which rivers flow. And then towards the end, وَكَانَ ذَلْكَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ فَوْزًا عَظِيمًا, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes paradise as a great accomplishment and true success, which is similar to what comes in Surah Al-Imran at 185. فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةَ فَقَدْ فَازَ. And who is moved away from the fire and admitted to paradise, he indeed is successful. وَيُعَذِّبَ الْمُنَافِقِينَ وَالْمُنَافِقَاتِ وَالْمُشْرِكَاتِ الظَّانِّينَ بِاللَّهِ ظَنَّ السَّوْءِ عَلَيْهِمْ دَائِرَةُ السَّوْءِ وَغَضِبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَعَنَهُمْ وَأَعَدَّ لَهُمْ جَهَنَّمَ وَسَاءَتْ مَصِيرًا. And that He may punish the hypocrite men and hypocrite women and the mushrik men and mushrik women, those who assume about Allah an assumption of evil nature. Upon them is a misfortune of evil nature, and Allah has become angry with them and has cursed them and prepared for them hellfire, and evil it is as a destination. The words Azannina billahi dhanna saw is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the quality of hypocrites and mushrikeen, that they assume the worst from Allah, meaning they question the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decisions, In particular, at the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they expected that Allah will not help Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and will not elevate his religion, and that believers will be surrounded by destruction. So what is the response of Allah to such people? عَلَيْهِمْ دَائِرَةُ السُّوءِ عَلَيْهِمْ دَائِرَةُ السَّوْءِ وَغَضِبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَعَنَهُمْ وَعَدَّ لَهُمْ جَهَنَّمْ وَسَاءَتْ مَصِيرًا. So they have a disgraceful torment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is angry with them and will remove his mercy from them. And it doesn't stop here. They will have the worst abode in the hereafter, which is going to be the hellfire. وَلِلَّهِ جُنُودُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَزِيزًا حَكِيمًا. And to Allah belong the soldiers of the heavens and the earth, and ever is Allah exalted in might and wise. Again, this is the statement of Allah's power, that He has the means to execute His commands, that He is mighty and wise. So let's review quickly ayats 1 to 7. So we learn about the promise of clear victory to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, could be considered as the conquest of Makkah, the Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, or the Bayt al-Ridwan. Different narrations come in that regard from Mufassirun. There is reassurance of forgiveness for Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam of all sins, and Prophet's sin, mistake in their ijtihad. Rewards of paradise are promised for believing men and believing women. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declares His wrath upon mushrikeen and hypocrites. Inna arsalnaka shahidan wa mubashiran wa nadhira. Indeed, we have sent you as a witness and as a bringer of good tidings and a warner. So here, three attributes of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam are mentioned. Shahid means witness, as it also comes in Surah An-Nisa, ayat number 41. فَكَيْفَ إِذَا جِئْنَا مِنْ كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ بِشَهِيدٍ وَجِئْنَا بِكَ عَلَى هَؤُلَاءِ شَهِيدًا. How will it be then when we bring from each nation a witness, and we bring you, O Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, as a witness against these people? So every prophet will bear testimony to the fact that he had delivered the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to his community on the Day of Judgment. Likely, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam will also bear witness to his community. But some scholars point out that the testimony of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam will be beyond the people of his time, since there are some narrations that suggest that angels present the deeds of Ummah to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the morning and evening. And Allah knows best. Other qualities mentioned here are Mubashir and Nadhir. And Mubashir is the bearer of good tidings, and Nadhir means a warner, that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gives good tidings of paradise to believers and warns against punishment of hellfire to those who disobey the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لِتُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَتُعَزِّرُوهُ وَتُوَقِّرُوهُ وَتُسَبِّحُوهُ بُكْرَةً وَأَصِيلًا. That you people may believe in Allah and His Messenger and honor Him and respect Him and exalt Him, Allah, in mornings and afternoons. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes three qualities of believers, that they do ta'zir, meaning support or help, tawqir, meaning respect, and tasbih, meaning to praise and glorify. So there is no doubt that tasbih refers to glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there is difference of opinion regarding the first two qualities, ta'zir and tawqir. Some scholars say that the other two qualities also refer to Allah, and then the other scholars say that ta'zir and tawqir are from Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that a believer would support Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and would have respect for him. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُبَايِعُونَكَ إِنَّمَا يُبَايِعُونَ اللَّهَ يَدُ اللَّهِ فَوْقَ أَيْدِيهِمْ فَمَنْ نَكَثَ فَإِنَّمَا يَنكُثُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ وَمَنْ أَوْفَى بِمَا عَاهَدَ عَلَيْهِ اللَّهَ فَسَيُؤْتِيهِ أَجْرًا عَظِيمًا. Indeed, those who pledge allegiance to you, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they are actually pledging allegiance to Allah. The hand of Allah is over their hands. So he who breaks his word only breaks it to the detriment of himself. And he who fulfills that which he has promised Allah, He will give him a great reward. So the word nakatha means naqad al-bay'a wal-ahda, break allegiance and covenant. And the word bay'a means to make a pledge to do some particular work. Traditionally, the way to make bay'a was to have the parties place hands over each other, but this is not the requirement to sanctify the commitment. in any case, we should understand that once you have made a pledge, it is binding. To complete it, and a violation of it is sinful. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reassures companions that his support is with those who made the pledge of Ridwan to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That making a pledge to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is akin to making a pledge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As it comes in Surah Nisa, ayat number 80, مَنْ يُطِعِ الرَّسُولَ فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهِ. He who obeys the messenger has indeed obeyed Allah. So one term here, Yadullah, requires more explanation. It means the hand of Allah. And this is considered among mutashabihat, that the precise nature of Allah's hand is unknown to us, and neither should we try to determine its reality, since we do not have the capacity to comprehend the being, the that of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, Yadullahi fawqa aydihim could be understood as that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with them. He's hearing their statements of companions when they were making the pledge. He's witnessing their pledge and has full knowledge of their commitment inwardly and outwardly. Those Sahaba that made pledge of Ridwan had a special honor for them, as will come later in the same surah, Surah Al-Fath, ayat 18. لَقَدْ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ يُبَايِعُونَكَ تَحْتَ الشَّجَرَةِ. Indeed, Allah was pleased with the believers when they gave the pledge to you under the tree. And then we see a few narrations for the high status of those Sahaba. Narrated by Jabir al-Tirmidhi, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, لا يدخل النار أحد ممن بايع تحت الشجرة. None of those who gave the pledge under the tree shall enter the fire. Another narration, narrated by Jabir al-Muslim, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, أنتم اليوم خير أهل الأرض. Today you are the best people on the earth. Let's review ayats 8 to 10. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was sent as a witness, a conveyor of glad tidings and a warner. Allah's glory is to be proclaimed in the mornings and evenings. There's special status given to companions who took the pledge of Ridwan, and there's prohibition of breaching covenant once you've made a pledge. We'll stop here inshallah. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك التواب الرحيم.